Hello and welcome to healthyhouseplants.com, where we teach you all about gardening in the great indoors. Today's video is sponsored by our Amazon affiliate link, which you'll see in the comment section below. You'll also see in the description below any links to any other videos that I've done that I mention, including links to the other parts of this repotting series. And this is part 4, preparing to repot. So this is when you're getting ready, you're getting things ready, you have various things to do to get ready to repot. The first thing, one of the most important things, is to water the plant that will be repotted. So this is Marvin, meet Marvin. He is a star of this series here, this repotting series, and he needs to be repotted as we've determined in prior videos. So now what we're going to do is you want to water the plant before you repot. At least 15-20 minutes before you repot is ideal. You want to water it really well, moisten it. That way the plant can start to take up some moisture. Ideally, if you can water it the day before, that's even better, but it's not the end of the world if you haven't. But do give it some moisture. So I am going to water him right now, and he is constantly thirsty, which was one of the signs that he needed repotting. So he is going to soak that up, and so you want to soak as much as you can down to the down below in the pot, because what you're trying, one of the reasons you're doing this, so that the plant can take up a little bit of water, hopefully, but also one of the reasons you're doing this is that you will keep the plant, the roots themselves will be moist when you expose them to the air. So one thing you don't want to do when you're repotting, and the next video will be actually the repotting process, is leave the soils, the roots exposed to air for very long. So say you're hungry, you want to have lunch, finish repotting the plant before, or keep it in the pot and don't take it out of the old pot until you're ready to repot, because you don't want to leave it laying around for more than 5 minutes or so, especially if it's hot out, or if you're in a really dry climate, or if you've got the heater going, or even the air conditioning in summertime. Now when you water it, it's good if you can to get like what's occurred here, and that is the plant is, the water's coming out of the bottom of the plant. That tells me I've done a good job of getting the soil to the root zone, everything wet. I'm going to set that aside while we continue to get ready for the repotting process. Now, the next thing is the preparing the pot itself. I decided not to go with this pot. It's almost the same size as the pot that I decided to go with. However, I decided not to go with it because it doesn't look as good as this pot does. This is also a terracotta pot. I mention the terracotta pots and all the different types of pots in my video on types of pots. And one of the things about the terracotta pots is they are porous, so they allow moisture to escape from all the way around the sides of the pot, as well as, of course, the soil does too, and then the drainage hole and the bottom. So if you do decide on a terracotta pot, I would suggest using a clay pot sealer to seal in some of the moisture, so that way, and if you put quite a bit of that sealant on there, it's going to do a pretty good job of keeping some of the moisture in. You'll get closer to a glazed ceramic pot in terms of moisture retention. The glazed ceramic protects the soil from drying out quickly all the way around, and also plastic is the most water retentive. So that's something to keep in mind. So say you do decide on this and you're worried about the too much moisture loss, which will lead to having to water more often, and it's not the greatest thing for plants that you don't want to dry out quickly, for sure. Okay, so keep in mind that you can use some sort of a clay pot sealant. You will probably have to redo that every few months to keep the sealant going good, to sealing well. But it is an option. If you are growing succulents, however, you don't want to use it. Most other plants, it actually wouldn't be a bad idea to use it. Of course, do it outside, follow directions carefully, let it dry, let it cure completely before you repot. So this isn't something I would want to do right now and then start repotting. I would want to give it the appropriate amount of time according to the directions for drying. And today I'm not using this pot, so that works. Now this is the pot I decided on using. Hopefully it will be the right size pot once I take the plant out of its container. I think it will be, but we will find out when we do that. So, however, I want to get it ready right now. So what I like to do, you can see it has a drainage hole. You also always want to get plants that have drainage holes, and it's very important that you do that. I like to also cover up the drainage hole, and one of my favorite things to use is drywall tape, because it comes in a cool roll that's easy, and the yellow ones are really easy to find when you're looking for your screen, so it's basically screening. You can also use regular screen, and they do make screen even cut out round circles of screening for this purpose. So I'm putting this in here, covering up the drainage hole, so that's another prep thing that I've done. Also a clean pot, okay? So this pot I did clean out. It had another plant in it prior. I did clean it out well. If you had a plant in the pot you're using and it did have a disease issue, such as root rot, you want to sterilize the pot. The best way to do that is to take a bucket and fill it with 9 parts water to 1 part bleach. Mix it up. Obviously be careful where you're doing this, that you don't stain your clothing, or anybody would come along and anyway, tip it over, something like that. But so carefully do this, and then put the pot itself into the mixture and let it sit for a good half hour. That's going to kill any lingering bacteria in the pot and make it nice and sterile for your new inhabitant of the pot. Okay, so you've got that, you've got the pot, it's all perfect, ready to go, yay. Now the soil. We talked about soil in the prior video, so you want to prep the soil prior as well. So what you want to do is you want your soil, so you can see this soil is at this point very dry. It's a dry soil. Now what you want to do is you want to moisten your soil before you pot up. And the reason you want to do that is there's a couple big reasons. Number one, this soil is going to sink once it's going to lose volume once it's wet. So if I were to plant a plant in dry soil, when I water, the soil level is going to sink in the pot, and there's not going to be enough soil in the pot. And then what you end up having to do is keep adding soil, and then it's just a big mess. So it's much better to water the soil, to moisten the soil prior to repotting. And now, you don't want soggy soil, you want moist soil. So right now, this part here is pretty soggy. I can get a little moisture out of it. That tells me, okay, no. But I have more to mix in here, so we're gonna be doing that right now. And get your hands in there, mix it up, good, till you get a good consistency. It's looking good. And when you're doing this too, it's a perfect time to add any added fertilizers to the soil as you go. Or if you want something like, if you want more drainage in the pot, you would want to add something like pumice. And I do have pumice. I do have a pumice product that I sell on the website. And so you can add a little pumice. I'm gonna add a little bit. This soil is the ProMix BX, which I mentioned in the prior video. So it already has some perlite, which is another good draining agent. However, pumice tends to stand up to the test of time a lot better than the perlite does. The perlite is, you can break it in your fingers, so it does tend to break down much more quickly. So I'm added a little bit of pumice to this too. Also, one of my favorite ingredients here is, this is worm castings, vermicompost, And I have a video on that and how great worm castings are. So I'm going to add some additional worm castings to this. I think the soil already has some, but it's never doesn't hurt to add more because they are a really good source of a lot of nutrients and micronutrients. So we've got that in there. And then I am going to, this is my Green Gourmet Houseplant food, and it contains natural growth hormones like alfalfa meal. It also contains mycorrhizae, which it creates a symbiotic relationship with roots and brings in more nutrients and more water than the plant would on its own. It also has humic acid. I've done videos on mycorrhizae and humic acid and alfalfa meal and the natural growth hormone. So I'm going to put a little bit of that in here. And there are directions on the package as to how much, so you don't want to overdo it. But the good news is when you are using these organic fertilizers and amendments like vermicompost, and this is mycorrhizae, so you could, depending on what soil you're using, you could add some mycorrhizae. The ProMix BX already has some mycorrhizae in it, so I'm not going to add any of that. So I'm mixing it in well. That way when I plant, all of the nutrients and the additives are well distributed throughout the soil so that the roots will get what they need as soon as I repot. Okay, so we've got that. Got it mixed in well, and I'll show you the consistency here. You can see, so it is moist, but it is not soggy. So if it was too soggy, if you squeeze the soil and water drips out of it, that means it's too soggy. But if you squeeze the soil and you can make a loosish ball, that's the perfect consistency. So there we go with that. Okay, so now we are ready to pot. All ready. You want to get all your, obviously the plant available. You want to have, I'll be filling this up with more water so I can water the plant once I repot it in the next video. Make sure you have all your necessary things for the repotting at your fingertips, and we will repot in the next video. So thank you for stopping by today. Please leave any comments about any indoor gardening tutorials you'd like to see. And remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.